At first glance, this looks like a peaceful winter landscape. Snow, frozen ponds, tiny skaters, dark trees, a village resting under a green-gray sky. But if you look at the left side of the painting, the entire mood changes. 3 hunters are returning home. Their heads are lowered. Their dogs look tired. And after all this effort, all they seem to have brought back is one small fox. This is not a triumphant return. It is almost the opposite, a scene of exhaustion, failure, and silence. And yet, just below them, the village is alive. People skate, play, work, gather, cross bridges, and move through the frozen world as if winter is not an enemy, but simply the condition of life. So what are we really looking at? A hunting scene? A winter postcard? Or something much deeper, a painting about how human beings survive inside a world that never fully belongs to them? The title is Hunters in the Snow, painted by Pieter Bruegel the Elder in 1565. It is now in the Kunsthistorisches Museum in Vienna, and it belongs to a larger cycle showing different times of the year. This panel is usually understood as winter, December, and January. But Bruegel does something unusual. He does not put the hunters in the center. He places them on the edge, almost as if they are entering a world that already exists without them. They are not heroes. They are only one small event among hundreds. Their bodies lean forward. Their legs sink into the snow. The dogs are not noble hunting animals in a heroic scene. They are thin, restless, almost defeated. And this tiny fox hanging from a pole tells us everything. The hunt has failed. And then there is another strange clue: the tracks in the snow. They suggest movement just outside the story. Something has passed here. Something may have escaped. Bruegel makes us feel that the world is full of things we cannot control. The hunters went out to master nature, to take something from it, but nature gave almost nothing back. Behind them stands an inn. Outside it, villagers gather around a fire, preparing a pig. Above the doorway hangs a sign, almost coming loose. It is usually read as the Golden Heart, and the image on it may refer to Saint Hubert or Saint Eustace, saints connected with hunting. This detail is almost ironic. The hunters return unsuccessful, while the sign above the inn still promises the noble world of hunting legends, visions, saints, miraculous animals. But Bruegel gives us no miracle, only cold, smoke, fatigue, and a dangling sign that looks as unstable as human hopes. This is one of Bruegel's great tricks. He takes something that could have been symbolic and heroic, then places it inside an ordinary village. The sacred becomes weathered. The legendary becomes almost comic. The miracle is reduced to an old sign outside an inn. And still, the painting is not cynical. It does not mock these people. It observes them. Now look at how the composition works. The trees rise like black bars, cutting the foreground into vertical sections. The hunters move diagonally downward, and that diagonal carries our eyes into the valley. We start with failure. Then, suddenly, the world opens. Below, the frozen ponds are filled with tiny figures. Some are skating. Some seem to be playing early forms of games on the ice. Others walk, bend, carry things, or simply stand together. In the distance, there are houses, a church, bridges, a mill, paths, smoke, and more people than we can count. The painting is quiet, but it is never still. This is where the painting becomes extraordinary. Bruegel does not tell one story. He creates a whole system of life. The hunters fail. The children play. The villagers work. The birds fly. The water freezes. Smoke rises. A cart moves along a path. Somewhere, someone crosses a bridge. No one figure controls the meaning. Each person is tiny, but no one is meaningless. And perhaps this is the hidden philosophy of the painting. Life is not a grand narrative with one hero in the center. Life is a pattern of small actions, repeated under conditions we did not choose. Look at the watermill. A mill is supposed to move. It turns with the force of water. It transforms nature into food, into work, into daily survival. But here, the wheel appears frozen. The machine has been stopped by the season. This is not just pretty winter scenery. It is winter as a force that interrupts human plans. Hunting fails, water freezes, labor changes, movement becomes difficult. Yet the people do not disappear. They adapt. That is why the skaters matter so much. The same cold that stops the mill creates a surface for play. The same ice that blocks one kind of life opens another. The painting was part of a seasonal cycle likely made for the Antwerp merchant and collector Nicolaes Jongelink. Another surviving panel, The Harvesters, belonged to this same 6-part cycle of the seasons, commissioned for a country home's dining room. This context matters. Bruegel was not just painting winter, he was painting time, the year as a wheel, work, rest, hunger, abundance, cold, harvest, return. Human beings appear again and again inside rhythms larger than themselves. And unlike traditional calendar images, these panels are large, immersive, almost cinematic. They are not tiny decorations in a manuscript. They make the landscape itself the main subject. Bruegel lived in a world of change. He was born around 1525 to 1530 and died in 1569. He worked during the Northern Renaissance, in the Low Countries, at a time of religious tension, social pressure, and political uncertainty. He became famous for landscapes and scenes of ordinary people, especially peasants. But his work is never simple folk comedy. He had also absorbed the tradition of the world landscape, an elevated panoramic view where mountains, villages, rivers, and tiny figures are brought together into one imagined world. The Met describes this kind of Bruegel landscape as not a real place, but a fantasy of visibility, filled with real details from everyday life. That explains the mountains. Those jagged peaks in the background do not belong to the flat landscape of Flanders. They are too dramatic, too alpine, almost like another world placed behind the village. This is not a mistake. Bruegel is building a universe. The village is local, but the landscape feels universal. The people are Flemish, but the winter could be anywhere. The scene is specific enough to feel real and vast enough to become a metaphor for human life inside nature. But there is something darker in the air. Look at the birds. Crows sit in the bare trees. A black bird cuts across the sky. These small silhouettes are easy to miss, but they sharpen the atmosphere. Some researchers have connected crows and magpies in Bruegel's work with ominous meanings, and in Dutch visual culture, the magpie could carry negative associations. But we should be careful. This does not mean the painting has one secret code. Bruegel is rarely that simple. The birds do not explain the painting, they disturb it. They add a note of warning to a scene that might otherwise look peaceful. This is why Hunters in the Snow is not merely beautiful. It is beautiful and unsettling at the same time. There is no blood, no battle, no dramatic catastrophe, but there is vulnerability everywhere. The hunters may not have enough food. The mill has stopped. The ice supports the villagers, but it could also betray them. The houses look warm but tiny. The mountains are majestic but indifferent. Bruegel does not need to paint disaster. He paints dependence. The timing adds another layer. The winter of 1565 is often discussed as unusually harsh, and Bruegel's snowy landscapes are frequently connected with the colder period known as the Little Ice Age. But we should call this what it is: context, not proof of a single intention. Still, it helps explain why snow in Bruegel feels so serious. This is not decorative snow. It is an environment. It changes the economy of life. It changes movement, food, labor, danger, and community. And Bruegel sees all of it. Here is the turn in the painting. Failure is not the end of the story. The hunters return with almost nothing, but below them, life continues. Not because life is easy, not because winter is gentle, But because human beings are strangely capable of making patterns inside hardship, they turn frozen water into a playground. They turn smoke into warmth. They turn repetition into survival. They move through a world that is larger, colder, and stronger than they are, and still they move. This may be Bruegel's quietest form of wisdom. In many paintings, humans dominate nature. They stand in the center. They carry symbolic objects. They look at us as if the world exists for them. Bruegel does the opposite. He pulls the camera back. He makes people small, but he does not make them insignificant. This is the paradox of the painting. The individual is tiny. The world is enormous. And yet every small act matters, because together, these acts create a human world inside the natural one. The hunters, the skaters, the workers, the children, the villagers by the fire, none of them is the main character. The main character is coexistence. Maybe that is why this image keeps returning in modern culture. It appears in Tarkovsky's Solaris and in Lars von Trier's Melancholia, two films deeply concerned with memory, fragility, and the place of human beings in a vast universe. The painting survives because it is not just about the 16th century, it is about us, about the feeling of looking at a world that is beautiful, organized, and completely beyond our control. So we return to the beginning, 3 hunters in the snow. At first, they seem to be the subject, but now they look more like an entrance. They lead us into the painting's real mystery, how life continues when success is uncertain, when nature refuses to obey, when every human plan is smaller than the season around it. 2. Bruegel does not give us a moral in the obvious sense. He gives us a world. And in that world, winter is not only cold, it is a test. It is a rhythm. It is a reminder that human life is fragile, but also incredibly persistent. Maybe the philosophy hidden in this winter scene is this: we are not masters of the landscape, we are participants in it. And that may be why the painting feels so calm and so frightening at the same time. What do you think Bruegel wanted us to feel here? The defeat of the hunters, the beauty of the village, or the strange comfort of knowing that life goes on even when nature wins?